Solid copy. Keep the beer cold for us. Hope y'all don't mind a little music. This is Warpath. Be advised we have additional choppers from the 160th inbound. Over. Raptor copies all. Joining formation.
Fight's already started for the bridge.
It's about time.
Raptor, this is Stalker 6-1. Snuggle up and keep a low ceiling. We're gonna come in right under those guns.
We've got a couple of unidentified aircraft headed toward your position. Does anyone have a visual? Here they come!
Russia and our super great friend North Korea have invaded us a lot in pop culture. From 1984 Red Dawn film to the 2012 Red Dawn film, and many other video games. Homefront is the same invasion trope video game, but where others blow this trend out of the water, this lends something to be desired. An American video game developer based in New York named Kaos Studios had an idea. After their somewhat success of Frontlines, Field of War, the Kaos team completely reworked their first title and wanted to focus on a cinematic, character-driven experience. David, last name I can't pronounce, the design director of Homefront, wanted the game to be played around guerrilla-style tactics and would be inspired by Half-Life 2, which you can see the Half-Life 2 resemblance in the final product. Earlier on in Homefront's development, the antagonists were originally intended to be a communist Chinese, but were replaced by unified Korea for two reasons. Reason 1, the risk of Chinese Ministry of Culture, and the reality of economic interdependence between America and China. According to Tae Kim, a former CIA field agent and consultant on the game's backstory, he thinks, quote, "We went to a very rigorous academic research process to make sure to not only look at North Korea's current state, but to look at historical examples, how things could parallel and turn events. History repeats itself, from today to the day the invasion starts in the game. If you combine everything, the odds are very, very slim this becomes true. But when you look at the storyline step by step, every step is a coin flip, but a plausible step. So once you get there, it's plausible. And from there, the next step is plausible as well. Even though the whole thing is fictional, it comes with plausible baby steps." Now just say plausible 5 times fast. The lead developers wanted you to play as a civilian that resisted the enemy force. Resistant fighters is the focus for the story. They wanted you to have full immersion.
The big thing for us from the beginning has been offer the player a unique core fantasy that they haven't had before. You know, if you want to play sci-fi space marines, there's tons of games that do that. If you want to play a modern professional soldier, you certainly got more than enough options to do that. In my eyes, we represent the only game that offers you this vibe of playing as a civilian, working with civilians under this foreign occupation. The Resistance doesn't have overwhelming numbers. They don't have the technology. They're forced to kind of scrounge what they have. The enemy is the one with the overwhelming numbers in this game, so that colors all our mission designs.
Now another interesting thing in this interview is about the squad mate. Lead level designer Rex Dixon talks about having squad mates and their different styles of combat and personalities. Now in the main game we have this, but from hearing the video it feels more ambitious than what we got.
You have a squad. There's 5 people in your squad and they persist pretty much throughout the game. Each one of them has different motivations, different fighting styles, etc. It's really about working with your squad. A classic resistance cell or insurgent cell is 5 people or less, and they don't really relate to any other resistance cells in case somebody gets captured. So they're all segmented and operate independently, and our squad is the same. So you might have some battles where you see other resistance cells fighting, but really it's all about you and your 5 members of your squad.
The 5 characters that are talked about is Boone Carlson, Connor Morgan, Rihanna, Hopper Lee, and the main protagonist, Robert Jacobs. Now their gameplay is the same, and I think it is unique. They wanted them to be different. In game though, all they do is shoot in combat with no distinctive battle tactics. Their character design though, for some, is the most interesting part. Boone Carlson in early gameplay footage, he had the same outfit, but was Caucasian with a full head of hair and a beard. Connor Morgan was at first intended to be the original leader of the Montrose Cell. However, he was changed with Boone Carlson in the final version. Rihanna in earlier gameplay had brownish orange hair and somewhat darker skin. Also, she is surprisingly enough the only Hispanic character in the entire game. Overall, a diverse group of characters with simple combat AI. THQ announced a tie-in novel titled Homefront, The Voice of Freedom, which set the stage of the video game. The book was released ahead of the game on January 25th, 2011. Homefront was released on March 15th, 2011 in North America, March 17th, 2011 in Australia, March 18th in Europe, and April 14th in Japan. For its Japanese release, Homefront had been censored by removing all references to North Korea, including pictures of then North Korea leader Kim Jong-il. They are replaced by references to, quote, a certain country to the north, unquote, and the, quote, northern leader. Spike, the game's Japanese Asian publisher, justified the censorship, stating that to, quote, use their real names would have been malicious to an existing person and an existing country, unquote. Sadly, the multiplayer is unplayable today, with empty servers, but from reading and watching footage, I would like to say it's like Battlefield with its own twists.
In multiplayer, the idea is that we want to capture large-scale warfare, but we want to make sure that it keeps really fast-paced. Soldiers fighting vehicles, fighting aircraft, airstrikes, and these futuristic tech drones, all kinds of like different parts of combat and military, all in a really large map with 32 players online. The battle point system basically rewards you for doing things that help your team win the game. So if you capture an objective or kill an opponent, you earn battle points. And then you can spend those battle points in-game using the D-pad to buy things like airstrikes or drones, or when you're spawning, you can elect to buy a vehicle directly. So no longer are you kind of running around the map looking for where the vehicle spawns. Now you're just helping your team win and then purchasing a vehicle when you're ready. The battle point system doesn't replace the traditional XP system. They kind of work hand in hand. XP you gain continually through every match, and you continue to level and you continue to unlock new things for your customizable loadouts.
It seems like an interesting concept, but I'll never know. Now that we got the interesting development out of the way, let us head into the game.
The torpedo that sunk the Chunun and took the lives of 46 South Korean sailors was fired by a North Korean submarine.
The game starts off as tell events of how the United Korea took over America. The opening sequence will thrust you into the story and make you a little invested. Cutscenes after every mission hold their standard throughout, and were some of my favorite things about this game. I love that it was a freedom broadcast and how it told some of the events you just finished, with some reality put into it. You play a character named Robert Jacobs, a former US Marine Corps combat helicopter pilot. You are awakened in his apartment in Montrose, Colorado, and ordered to a re-education camp in Alaska. Jacobs sees that the Korean troops have seized control of the town. However, the bus carrying Jacobs is ambushed by American resistance fighters, Connor, a former Marine, and Rihanna, a hunting expert, who led him to Oasis, a resistance hideout founded by local state patrolman Boone Carlson. Boone, Connor, and Rihanna are aware of Jacobs' background as a pilot and recruit him to help recover fuel for the scattered U.S. military forces. Boone initiates the operation with himself, Jacobs, Connor, Rihanna, and Hopper, so you and your band of resistors take off for the fight for freedom. Your group's first plan is to steal tracking beacons to place on fuel tanks. On your way to help, you have an inside man that helps for 5 seconds, then betrays you. You'll kill him and everyone else.
It's over! Face it, the Koreans won! It's over!
It's over for you.
Then, Connor decides to kill a bunch of bad guys because of mass graves, which you later hide in. The band of rebels take off again to attack the warehouse. But surprise, we use white phosphorus. Did not go as planned, but we placed the trackers on the fuel tanks. Then we make it back to the Oasis, and boom, Boone is dead. So we decide to continue the plan and break out of Montrose, Colorado. Fighting through the city with more help from your allies, using the Goliath, we strap C4 onto it and blow out of this popsicle stand. The team has the information that a suitable helicopter is in a survivalist encampment in Utah. As the camp residents are violent towards Koreans and Americans alike, the team infiltrates the camp and manages to steal the helicopter. They pursue and hijack a fuel convoy by jumping on it. This is some Fast and Furious shit. Yourself providing air support, the team continues their trip to San Francisco, where they deliver their jet fuel to aid the US military. The US Armed Forces begin their West Coast counteroffensive by trying to retake San Francisco. They launch an assault that succeeds in retaking most of the Golden Gate Bridge with ground personnel. Nearing the San Francisco side of the bridge, the Americans find themselves outgunned by a massive KPA battalion. Although the ground forces have captured and reprogrammed the KPA ground-based air defenses, attaining air defenses for the U.S. Air Force, the American aircraft cannot identify where to strike due to the smoke, debris, and confusion. Realizing that they're at a crucial turning point, Connor lights a flare and advances on foot towards the enemy convoy and orders an airstrike onto his own position, sacrificing himself to ensure that the American ground forces can retake the city.
You got on the flare! Affirmative. Airstrike inbound.
No! Connor, wait!
Strike leader, confirm you have a visual. Eagle 1 has eyes on the flare. Package away.
Connor! Can anyone see him? Connor!
This is Europa News in London. The Underground Voice of Freedom Network reports that American resistance fighters have joined U.S. military forces in a major offensive in occupied San Francisco at the Golden Gate Bridge. The coordinated attack may prove to be a turning point in America's guerrilla war against the Korean occupation. Meanwhile, the EU Defense Council has called an emergency session to plan support for our allies across the Atlantic.
Now, while the story is not bad per se, some characters ruin it for me. The voice acting is fantastic, but the characters bore me. Connor is a walking trope of being an asshole, which, sure, you can justify by saying the US is in a war against Korea or life sucks, but you still don't feel invested. And he could have threw the goddamn flare. No one in this game made me feel anything. The story is just bland. Now, while the story is the driving force throughout the game, how does the gameplay hold up? First off, the graphics are not horrible. At times it can be pleasant, but other times it looks muddled and outdated. Weapons feel lifeless. They do not strike terror when being fired. It lacks punches, and I wish they pumped up the enthusiasm a real weapon gives. Now, some guns I enjoyed was the sniper.
Ambush! Kill 'em all!
Killing spree.
LMG,
Calm down, man!
and the shotgun.
Guys, we got heavy KPA reinforcements closing in out here. We need time.
Many other weapons from pistols and grenades, like many other first-person shooters. Shocker. Now, the entire time I was playing the game, I was bored as hell. Now, I thought my nostalgic from when I played this game with my dad at a very young age would help. But nostalgia did nothing for my enjoyment. I'll be honest though, when I got to the mission where you are fighting out of the city, I was drawn into the action. Sadly though, one part of the game cannot help the rest. Homefront left me wanting more. More with its presentation and its combat. The story is unforgettable because it lacks any creativity. I wanted to capture the same fond memories when I was a wee lad and I got this on Xbox 360, but to no prevail. A generic shooter that'll go into a pile of disappointment. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.